And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Friday, November 7th. I am Josh Engelman. This is DK DFS, and we are here to break down a fantastic DFS slate. NBA Cup Friday, some interesting games. This was a much when I talked about it this morning on our strategy show, and now the Hornets look a little bit different. And we have 70% ownership coming into Trey Mann. We're going to get to all of it. So hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. That's at DK__DFS. What's going on, brother?
Yeah, doing pretty good. Glad it's Friday. It's great that we have some NBA Cup games to talk about. Really good size contests on DraftKings as well. So hoping it's a good slate and hoping we can make some money.
I'm excited for it. I didn't want the Charlotte stuff, but it happens. Got some value. Gonna be fine. We're gonna talk about those guys in a bit, but that is not who we're gonna lead this one off with. We are gonna work our way through this one game by game. It's the perfect slate for it, and we are gonna start this one off because we have a certain setup today. We've got 2 7 o'clocks, 3 7:30s, and 4 8 o'clock starts. Everything locks within an hour. We're starting with Boston and Orlando. Not a very appealing DFS game at this moment, at least not on the DraftKings side. Highest owned guy in the game, Jaylen Brown at 7%. Kata is second. No one is over 10% optimal. Do you like anything for Boston and Orlando at this moment?
Not really. I think you can play Jaylen Brown at his ownership. Obviously he's the guy leading the team in usage. We've seen the ceiling games from Jaylen Brown. There's been a couple of blowouts, so we haven't seen full fourth quarter run for Jaylen Brown. But like for example, last game against the Wizards, he had a 41% usage rate. So I think he's playable. The price has come down on Derek White, but with all the good guard plays on the slate, I think it's kind of hard to go there. We once again have a ton of really good center plays. So not saying you can't get to Kata, but I think there's probably better point per dollar plays on the slate. The price has come down on Simons, I think, to like a playable point off the bench. It was a little bit interesting, though. I don't know if it was a great sign that Simons closed last game in a blowout. So he actually played like the last 20 minutes and closed the blowout with Minot, Hauser, Walsh, and Gonzalez. So again, I don't know if that's necessarily a great sign. The Orlando side, I think, is tough to get to because like the price is up on Paolo at 9,400. There's other guys in that range I'd rather get to. I mean, maybe this is the game that Desmond Bane finally has a good game at 1% ownership, but I still don't think I can do it. So yeah, overall, I would say this is definitely one of the more probably my least favorite game on the slate.
I agree. 7 o'clock start too, so you're locking yourself into whatever you take. The thing is, there are multiple guys here that you're like, okay, I don't mind if this guy is the way that I'm different in this lineup. Like if it's Jaylen Brown, 28% boom rate. Paolo Banchero, 24% boom rate. If it's Desmond Bane or Derek White or Franz Wagner, like we know these guys can have really good tournament winning games at no ownership. But this isn't going to be a situation where you have a lot of them when you get into lock. They're just not that cost effective right now. But if it's, I just built a very chalky lineup and I can turn player X into Paolo Banchero, I don't think that's crazy at all for the lineup construction. But, when you end up doing that, you'll end up with 4% of Paolo Banchero or 5% if that's your stand. It's just not an appealing game. And obviously, Orlando, a defensive oriented team. They had they were never going to win the series last year in the playoffs, but defensively they made Boston work. I don't think Boston enjoyed that series one bit. Now, obviously Boston is not the same team. Orlando can still give them that same attention. So I don't love this one for offense. I'm going to hop to FanDuel immediately just to talk about it quickly. We check off Boston and Orlando here. Everything we just said for DraftKings is the same. Essentially no ownership. Same principles here. We can move on because there are many more places to talk about. Like this one, Cleveland at Washington. Just a truly dreadful game between what could be the best team in the East against the worst team in the East. Now, we are getting some ownership. Luckily for us, it's to the worst team. 13% ownership to Alex Sarr, 13% ownership to Bub Carrington. Very little else coming into this one. So my question here for you is, well, one, thoughts on Keyshawn George, and then two, how are you feeling about these Wizards against the Cavs in an NBA Cup game, no less, where beating the shit out of them is actually helpful?
Yeah, so again, Keyshawn George got added midday with an illness, questionable tag. I don't really have a super strong lean on it. I think it's close to 50-50. We already have Koulibaly out. So if Keyshawn George plays, I'm expecting Bub Carrington to start. And I think because that was what they were starting before Koulibaly came back. So I think they would just go Carrington, Sarr, George, CJ, and Middleton. If Keyshawn George gets ruled out, I think they could do a couple different things. Like they could go to Champagny. Would they start like Trey Johnson? I don't know. Like, what do you think they would do if George gets ruled out in the starting lineup?
So that'd be what? Carrington, Sarr, CJ, Middleton. Probably Champagny.
Yeah. And
I could see Kispert. I'd be surprised at Cam Whitmore. I don't think that fits the rest of the people that are on the floor at that point. So I think you either go Champagny for like the defensive type situation, or you go to Kispert just for spacing.
Okay. Yeah. And like the minutes have been down on Whitmore too. Like last game, he only put 8 minutes. So his role has been decreasing. By the way, is it Kaishan or is it Keyshawn? Because I originally thought it was Kaishan that I've been saying Keyshawn, but now I've heard Kaishan too.
I'm almost positive it's Keyshawn.
That's what I thought too.
But now I'm starting to think it's Kaishan. I've definitely looked this up, but it's Keyshawn.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So I saw someone in the chat.
Did I say Kaishan or Keyshawn?
Well, no, because someone in the chat said it's Kaishan, not Keyshawn. And I was like,
it's Keyshawn.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's 100% Keyshawn.
Okay. But yeah, so
Jake, Basketball Reference says Keyshawn. And I trust them like a billion times more than you.
But yeah, so for Washington, I do have interest in Alex Sarr here. I know he's getting a little bit of love. It's the same old, right? It's just a matter of, can Washington keep this game competitive? You've seen some big games from Sarr, even in blowouts. Like the last two games against the Knicks, he put up 44.5 in a blowout. He put up 51 in a blowout against Boston. So like if you can get a competitive game, I think you could see like 33, 34 minutes from Alex Sarr. Not the ownership's there, but I do think he is playable for sure. Bub Carrington, 4K, pretty solid role. Expecting him to start. And there's really no ownership coming to anyone else here. The Cleveland guys, while I really like the matchup, they're like a fully healthy team now. So I think it's tougher to make the argument for Mitchell and Mobley. Not saying they can't have a good game, but I think it's tougher to get to them in this slate. You have Hunter back, right? Darius Garland was pacing for 27 minutes last game. I think you're projecting like similar in a competitive game, maybe around that 30-minute mark. On a slate, I was into if there wasn't a lot of value already, I was going to mention like Craig Porter Jr. just because without Lonzo Ball, he's going to play the backup point, and if the game does get out of hand, like he would close the game. But again, we do have a lot of value, specifically on the Charlotte side, which we'll talk about. But yeah, so like it's a great spot for Cleveland, but there's really nothing standing out to me.
Okay, two things. I'm looking, and you kind of mentioned it, like Mobley, Mitchell, they're in the same bucket as Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner from the previous game, Jaylen Brown. Like, yeah, they can be that guy. Two, Jake Swales said, I wish I could send screenshots because it's 100% spelled Kaishan. And It's Kyshawn. Yeah, I don't disagree with how it's spelled. I'm telling you that that's not how it's pronounced. Those are two different things.
Right. Yeah. I remember
those are two different things.
At first I was saying Kaishang. So I'm like, oh, that's how it's spelled. But yeah, it's Keyshawn.
Yeah, that's how it's read, but yeah, Keyshawn. That is what we're dealing with right now. I think Cleveland's going to beat the brakes off of these guys today. Bad.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a beating, and I think they're like going to keep their foot on their throat for a bit to just cover themselves a little bit for margin of victory concerns during the NBA Cup. They're just going to cut these guys apart. They're too good. Washington's too bad. I love Cleveland here. I think they smack them. Problem is, I don't know which one to pick. Whether it's Mobley that does it, Mitchell that does it, they all just do it, or none of them do it, and it's their defense that does it, and they just, smother Washington to like 81 points or something. That's also possible. That's where we're at. Let's see what FanDuel has for Cleveland and Washington. Basically the same thing, a little bit more ownership on Evan Mobley, 14% owned, but we drop it right back down there. Everybody else sub 10%. Donovan Mitchell at 10, Alex Sarr just shy of 10. So let's keep it moving one more time. Next game up on the list. Fun game for NBA Cup purposes, that's for sure. Toronto and Atlanta. And I've got takes on this game. I don't know how it's going to play out for me in DFS situations, but I really like Atlanta here. They are slight favorites in Atlanta. Obviously, no Trae Young. About 15% ownership to Jalen Johnson, 15 to Porzingis, and then about 10 to Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Very little to anybody else here. How are you feeling about this game right now?
Yeah, I think this is a sneaky game for tournaments. I guess starting with the Atlanta side. So Jalen Johnson right now is the one getting the most ownership. And I think I agree with that. Obviously gets the usage bump here without Trae Young, is one of their primary ball handlers too. It's like him and Dyson Daniels right now that are leading the team in potential assists with Trae Young off the court. This is a high total game. So, I could see with this being a cup game, Jalen Johnson playing like 36, 37 minutes even. So, I think he's a really solid play at ownership. Porzingis, the one concern with him really has just been the minutes. 28 minutes 2 games ago, 26 minutes last game in a blowout. But I think you could get close to that 30-minute mark. Again, a lot of good center plays, but really like the spot here for Porzingis as well. Nickeil is around 10% ownership. Like that's fine. I don't really have any super strong takes there. The Toronto side's basically getting no ownership. One thing to mention, so not that you would play CMB, but you saw Pirtle and Mumuklashvili basically just split the center minutes. So CMB only played the backup 4 last game. Again, not saying you're going to consider him, but just wanted to mention that. There's no ownership going to Toronto. So like, if you wanted to take a shot on like a unowned Scotty Barnes or Quickly, I think it's viable on this slate. Just because I think this game could definitely shoot out.
Yeah, this whole pack of guys right here, from Quickly, Okongwu, Barnes, Barrett, Ingram, Daniels, it's all just this same 5% owned guy, 20 to 25% boom rate, where if you've got an angle on one of these dudes, I think it's a decent shot. Now, when it comes to Toronto, I never feel like I have an angle on them. I don't think they know what's going to happen each day for them, because they're just going to attack differently every day. So it's always hard for me to think like, this is a RJ Barrett day or this is a Brandon Ingram day. But at the same time, it's always going to be like one of their days. I do have no idea why, but I have a sneaky Zachary Risache stand today. I've got nothing to back it up. I just think he's going to be a little bit better as the season goes on. And I'd like to be earlier to that than late, because I liked what I saw last year. And I'm looking for him to just do a little bit more. 4,300 small forward eligibility, absolutely no ownership. No one's going to be there, but I think I might. But I want the guys that are at the top that are getting the ownership. Jalen Johnson, Porzingis, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Because I really think Atlanta is just a better team here. And that's even without Trae Young, which will become very interesting if this team wins a bunch of basketball games while Trae Young is on the sideline and not under a long-term contract with the Atlanta Hawks. What will happen? I don't know. If you had to pick one Toronto guy, could you do it?
Let's see. I think it would probably be quickly just because the price point. So yeah, again, they always are pretty tough to pick between Toronto and fully healthy, but yeah, I think quickly because he's the cheapest.
That's fair. I get it. There's barely any MPEs in this one, and the one guy that has it at the top has it skips a position. It's incredible.
Right.
I never understand how they assign these things.
There's one other guy. I didn't mention Dyson Daniels. I mean, he's getting no ownership either. Again, he's like their primary ball handler right now. He's playing huge minutes too. 38, 36, 35 minutes in a blowout over the last 3 games. So I do think he's in play too. Again, it's tougher to get to him because he's only shooting guard eligible. But yeah, I still think he's in play for tournaments too.
Very different vibes on FanDuel, where Jalen Johnson at 8,400, small forward, power forward eligibility, 35% owned here. Much bigger jump, much more popular in the cash mix. Almost certainly a cash lock at either small forward or power forward. Let me take a peek just to make sure I'm not saying anything crazy. No, I mean, he's 5th in ownership. About as close to a cash lock as you're going to get on this slate. Was that a notification? Nope. Last one was Austin Reeves, apparently. Either way, big time Jalen Johnson play on FanDuel. Looks good. Right in line with our optimal rates. Nothing to say there. Same sort of ownership for Porzingis and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Same sort of story for the rest of these guys. Very minimal ownership coming in across the board. Keyshawn George, a game time decision. So no news has changed whatsoever other than the fact that his name is Keyshawn. That is the case for right now. I don't have anything else for this Atlanta and Toronto game. We are getting dangerously close to talking about a game that really matters. I'm a little interested in this one too. Let's switch it over to Detroit and Brooklyn. So Detroit is in Brooklyn. Huge favorites, unsurprisingly. Brooklyn now without Cam Thomas. He got dinged up. Have you seen anything on how long he's going to be out? I haven't seen.
No, I know it's that same hamstring that he missed a lot of games for last year. So I would assume he's going to be out for a bit.
So we've got Karis LeVert questionable in this one, but now we've got a ton of ownership and some things to talk about. 25% to Terrence Mann, Michael Porter Jr., and Tyrese Martin. Mann and Martin, more lower salary plays. MPJ more in the upper mid. And then we got another 15% to Noah Clowney, Nick Claxton, Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duren, Asar Thompson, and a little bit still coming into some other guys that we could talk about. Interesting enough, I just read off 8 names. None of them were Cade Cunningham, $10,400 and 5% owned today. Let's start with the Brooklyn side because that's where the value lies now that Cam Thomas is gone. There is some ownership at the top. Is there anybody here you like more or less than the others?
So I think Claxton at 6K is pretty interesting at 15% ownership. We're not getting him as low owned as we did last slate, but again, the minutes are just way up on him. 34, 30 in a blowout, and 34 last game. They ran more offense through him with Cam Thomas off the court. So if this game does stay competitive, I think you could see around that 35-minute mark for Nick Claxton. So I like the ceiling on him quite a bit. The rest of Brooklyn, Michael Porter Jr. also had a huge game last game. He gets a usage bump with Cam Thomas off the court. 7K is a reasonable price point. The value guys are a little bit tricky for me. Terrence Mann, Tyrese Martin, Noah Clowney. You could throw Zaire Williams in the mix. You did see a different role for Terrence Mann once Cam Thomas went down. He actually had 16 potential assists last game, so he was like their primary point guard. So I think of the value group, he's probably the guy that I feel the best about. But I understand why like Tyrese Martin and Noah Clowney are getting some love too, just because they're really cheap and Standout's pretty solid point per hour plays. So what's your thoughts on Brooklyn?
Oh, there's just so much value here. It's crazy. it's everywhere. Looking at it for me personally, not surprised to see Terrence Mann at the top. Not surprised to see Tyrese Martin and Michael Porter Jr. right behind him. They're the top 3 guys on my list as well. You want to always like take a shot on Day'Ron Sharpe at 3,700. Could today be a day he gets a couple extra minutes if like Nick Claxton gets himself into any early foul trouble against the double big set? Could there be something there? I don't know. Day'Ron Sharpe, 7% owned, 11% optimal, second highest leverage mark on anybody here other than Cade Cunningham. I think Clowney's probably the guy I like the least, and it's not for any particular reason. The $3,900 price tag looks great. The MPE looks great. I think I'm just more likely to be on the first 3 guys than anything else. But I think I want to have a little bit of sneaky Day'Ron Sharpe today.
Yeah, I like the Day'Ron Sharpe shout out, and he has closed like every blowout so far for Brooklyn. So if this game does get out of hand, he would benefit in that scenario. And he's a really good point per minute player too. So I think he's an interesting GPP play right now, just because he has that minute ceiling.
Oh boy, that would be a fun way to win. I'd be happy with that. Get myself a Day'Ron Sharpe jersey. I'm sure that can't be too costly. And I assume Detroit blows them out, or at least can blow them out. I mean, I don't know how Detroit's defense is really good. They don't let people get to the rim, and when they get to the rim, they get erased. Isaiah Stewart's one of the best rim protectors in the league, and like Jalen Duren's no slouch himself. How does Brooklyn create offense in this game? I have no idea.
I know it feels like this game could pretty easily get out of hand because it's like a 10.5 point spread, right? I think last I looked.
Yes, 10.5 is what I saw last I took a peek. That's a big number. It's a big number. So Cade, 10-4. In the grand scheme of pay up options today, if I clear this table out right now, we've got Wemby at 12-3, just straight up unowned. Giannis at 11-6, 30% owned. Pretty clearly the easiest pay up option to get to. Cade at 10-4, unowned. Şengün at 9,500, unowned. Paolo Banchero at 9,400, unowned. And then we get to Josh Giddey, who we haven't talked about yet, 9,300, pulling some chunky ownership, 25%. Donovan Mitchell, unowned. Then we get a pack of guys that are all just sort of pulling some stuff. Any interest in Cade here at nothing right now?
A little bit. I think it's hard to get to Cade over a guy like Josh Giddey right now. But again, you are getting that like basically no ownership on Cade. And like if Brooklyn can keep it competitive, the ceiling is massive on him. So I'm not going to rule it out. I think he's certainly in play. But I understand why he's not getting a lot of love. There's some other spend ups, Giddey, we got Giannis, we got Bridges, we'll talk about in a bit. So I get why it's not happening, but I would never say no to, clicking Cade Cunningham on the slate in tournaments.
And I said this about the Cleveland-Washington game, and I think it's very applicable here. Detroit could just smother them, and the blowout is because Brooklyn scores 78 points, and it's 99-78, and it's never close, and it never matters, and Brooklyn just becomes the ultimate in not meaningful because they just get bludgeoned. That is live. for today because they do not have a lot of offensive creation here. Their team is offensive.
Yeah, and the role's already been great for Cade, but I mean, averaging like 70 passes made, 20 potential assists over the last 4 games. The next highest is Asar at 5.5 potential assists. So Cade's got the ball in his hands a ton. So kind of stating the obvious there, but his again, with not a lot of like backup point guards, he's got a really, really good role right now.
So 30% ownership coming into Isaiah Stewart on the FanDuel side. Power forward center eligibility. Actually, you know what? We're near the bottom of the hour. Did we do an update by any chance? Always smart to click it. No, we did not. And nothing had happened that would have led me to believe I should have checked it, but you do always want to give it a peek. Like I said, 30% ownership coming into Isaiah Stewart. Next up on the list is Jalen Duren, just shy of 20. Then you got a couple guys at 10 in Claxton, Cunningham, Mann, and Porter. So completely different vibes here, site to site. FanDuel, it's Mann, it's Martin, it's Porter. Those guys are all 6 to 10% owned. Very different. Isaiah Stewart here on FanDuel, 30% owned. DraftKings, not that. So if you're playing between sites, you could have very different exposure to the Detroit Pistons and Brooklyn Nets when you compare these things back and forth. So, ugly basketball getting ready to get played here in Brooklyn. Are you here for it? It's going to be fun times,
I guess.
But look, Cleveland, I talk about it a lot. Cleveland, Washington, 13-point line. Detroit, Brooklyn, 10-point line. Utah, Minnesota, 12.5-point line. One of those 3 teams probably wins. I don't know who it's going to be. Is it Washington that beats Cleveland? Is it Brooklyn that beats Detroit? Is it Utah that beats Minnesota? One of those things is likely to happen today. Yuck for whoever loses that one.
One other thing to mention with Detroit is they've been running a pretty tight rotation over the last couple of games, basically like an 8-man rotation. I mean, you've seen like one shift of Paul Reed over the last couple of games, but yeah, they've been running a much more condensed rotation with Tobias out and with Sasser out.
Yeah, they've been very tight, which I didn't think they would be. But I mean, when you get down to some of those guys, I guess it starts to make sense.
Yeah, they're
pretty
out of the
quickly.
Bench, not great.
No, not so much. You know what is great, everybody? Signing up at Stokastic, and it is very, very easy to do. There is a link in the description of this video. If you click it and follow the instructions that are at the top of the screen, they are all outlined perfectly for you, very simply. And you sign up through a sportsbook or a pick'em site. Some of them are listed on the screen right now. Onyx, Better, Sleeper, BetMGM, Caesars, Fanatics. Follow the instructions on the site. You're going to get 1 month of the Sims for $0. You don't pay us anything. You just get it. Projections, ownership, Sims, post-contest Sims, single lineup Sim, everything we're talking about here. And if you can sign up at a couple of these partners, if you've never signed up there before, you can stack these offers on top of each other and get multiple months of the Sims for nothing. You'll pay us nothing. You could be here for months. Why wouldn't you want to do that? If you're going to be here anyway, if you're going to bet anyway, and you haven't signed up at these places, just do it through us and get our stuff and play DFS the whole time. It never gets easier than that. Click that link in the description. Come join us. Come hang out. Plenty of winners lately, folks. Plenty of screenshots coming in. We are halfway done this slate. The next game up is probably the one that everybody wants to watch the most, right? Houston Rockets in San Antonio against the Spurs. We get the Rockets. We get Wemby. It's fun times here. But unfortunately for us, Victor Wembanyama is really not priced well in terms of playing him in DFS. Not to mention, nobody is getting any love in this game on, let's hope I'm on DraftKings. Yeah, this is the DraftKings side. 7% ownership to Stephon Castle, 5% to Kevin Durant. We do have Q tags waiting out there on Steven Adams, Jeremy Sohan, and Kelly Olynyk. Most of those should be irrelevant. Adams out could open up some like weird Clint Capella stuff or some more Tari Eason potentially, but there's nothing here. What do you like?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, Steven Adams news, keep an eye on that. Last game, Houston, I mean, they've been running a tight rotation, but you saw Tari Eason was actually pushing or was pacing for like 33 minutes if the game would have stayed competitive. So if Adams gets rolled out, I think Eason is a lot more viable. Capella, would kind of play that Steven Adams role. So would have a little bit more interest in Eason right now. He's only projecting for about 2% ownership. I think my favorite guy in this game to get to would be Stephon Castle. So 7,400, reasonable price point, coming in sub 10% ownership. And the role has been a little bit different now with Harper injured. So Castle last game, 67 passes made, 16 potential assists. So he's got the ball in his hands a little bit more. Also, minutes have ticked up a little bit on him as well. So I know it's not really the best matchup for Stephon Castle, but I do think he is a pretty good play here at his current ownership. No one else on Houston's getting any love. Alfred Şengün, 1%, and then Thompson, sub 1%. I think I have a little bit more interest in those two than the current ownership, but yeah, I don't love the spot here for Şengün. And then, yeah, you mentioned Wemby. He's completely unowned too. I think it's hard to get to him, but would I say no to playing him at ownership in a large field tournament? No. So yeah, overall, this is going to be a really fun game to watch, but not really for DFS purposes.
We got an alert for the OKC game, and it made me laugh to myself because it's Lou Dort listed out Friday, but the reason that he's out is trap, which obviously to them is a muscle. But I was just like, he's in the trap, he can't get out.
Right, that's funny. I don't think I've ever seen that on Underdog before, that alert.
That's a new one.
Yeah.
I think this is a great spot for Şengün. I think his size plays really well in this matchup. He's a $9,500 center only option here. And I think there's a reason we show him optimal 2% of the time. It just becomes cost prohibitive. The boom looks great, undoubtedly. And he'd probably be the guy that I'd want to take the shot on. I don't anticipate having a ton of this one, but I want to watch the hell out of this game. It should be really fun. I don't know what to do with it, though.
Yeah. I mean, the San Antonio news, too. I know there's a couple questionable tags. That really doesn't do much with Sohan and Olynyk. I think they both play, but that's not really going to change a ton. So, yeah, I'm probably going to watch this game, but again, not going to have a ton for DFS.
Are you playing on FanDuel today, folks? Well, the game's the same. No ownership coming in here. 7% to Castles, 6% to Kevin Durant. There's just nothing here. There's nothing here. Bucket, Durant, and Wemby, and those guys in those same buckets that we talked about before with all those other pay-up all-NBA type dudes. But there's just not a lot of love for them today. I do lean Şengün. He's sort of a sneak play for me today. Now we're going to get to what looks like the main event of the evening. But it's like one of those days where somebody pulled out and they had to replace it with something that sucks. This is the Charlotte Hornets and the Miami Heat. And we've got some ownership coming in here now that we need to address. $4,900 Trey Mann, point guard, shooting guard eligible, 70% owned. Con Knipple, 5,800, shooting guard, small forward eligible, 35% owned. We've got 30% ownership coming into Khalil Ware, close to 30 on KJ Simpson, 20 more to Miles Bridges, all because it doesn't seem like we're going to have LaMelo Ball, Colin Sexton, and we definitely don't have Bam Adebayo. Welcome to Charlotte and Miami to a degree.
Yeah, I think this is definitely your top game to get to on the slate. Charlotte going to be pretty shorthanded. Also, the G League guys are not there. So Reeves, Peterson, Salon. So they technically are only going to have 10 available bodies. I don't think Plumlee plays unless you get some foul trouble. So expecting a 9-man rotation here for Charlotte. The one question that I don't know, I'm not 100% sure who starts here at point guard. It's going to be one of KJ Simpson or Trey Mann. Do you have a lean on who you think starts there?
Yeah, I think that's going to be Trey Mann right now. That's the way that we have it, as Mann, Knipple, Sion James, Miles Bridges, Ryan Kalkbrenner. And for anybody that is curious, we do have a projected starters page that you guys can go to totally free. Come to stokastic.com. Scroll yourselves down to this game. Did I scroll past it? I did not. Trey Mann, Con Knipple, Sion James, Miles Bridges, and Ryan Kalkbrenner. There you go.
Yes. So Trey Mann, going back to last year with LaMelo and Brandon Miller off the court, he's got about a 32% usage rate, and he's going to be one of their primary ball handlers as well. So whether he starts or comes off the bench, I like him. Obviously, think that ownership will drop if he comes off the bench, but either way, the ceiling is massive on Trey Mann. Again, this team needs offense. They need ball handling. And yeah, he's coming in sub 5K. He's got point guard, shooting guard eligibility. So he looks great. A lot more to like here too. Like KJ Simpson, 3,500 is going to have a much bigger role here as well. I think, off the bench, probably we'll push for, 20 plus minutes if he starts. Obviously, you're expecting a lot more. He looks like a good value. Khan at 5,800 can have a much bigger role as well. He's got guard forward eligibility, probably going to be in that mid 30s minute range. Miles Bridges, not insane ownership, which I think is pretty interesting. Like, I expect him to lead the team in usage. I would not be surprised if he pushes for 40 minutes in the spot. So I really like the upside on Miles Bridges. And again, only around 20% ownership, I think looks really good. So those are your 4 Hornets right now that are getting love. I think it's kind of hard to get to anyone else. I mean, the centers, again, we had some really good centers on this slate. So Kalkbrenner, Diabate are a little bit tougher to get to. Maybe there's a chance that you get some Diabate at the 4 with how shorthanded they are. I think it's in the range of outcomes. Sion James also not getting a ton of love. I expect him to play a lot. I think he's playable in a large field tournament, but don't expect him to be like a super high usage player. And then, I think it's pretty hard to get to like McNeely or Pat Connaughton, who are going to be in the rotation, but I don't think it's really necessary to go to those guys. So I guess for Charlotte, like who's your favorite player right now?
I mean, it's hard, like assuming that Mann is starting, it's very clearly Mann. If it ends up being KJ Simpson starting, like obviously he's just going to soak up a ton of ownership, but Mann's still going to be very popular either way. Cam Thomas out 3 to 4 weeks. There's that news. Okay. I do think Sion James is like a little underrepresented for what this is here today for value. I would not like if Trey Mann is going to be 70 and Sion James is going to be 4. Like, I feel like I could redistribute that a little bit and be unique. I think he's the most interesting dude here. I mean, I guess Ryan Kalkbrenner is interesting in that, like, it's his job for sure, and it's not Bam Adebayo.
Right.
That's always helpful.
Much better spot without Bam.
There's one guy that we need to talk about in this game that I like quite a bit.
Okay.
And he is not getting ownership.
Is it someone on the Miami side?
It is.
Let's say. Is it Norm Powell?
It is not Norm Powell.
Okay. Who is it?
It is Nikola Jovic.
I like that call a lot.
No Bam Adebayo. 4,500. Unfortunately, center only. It's just annoying. 1% owned. This dude's minutes yo-yo more than maybe anybody in the league. He'll play 4. He'll play 34. He'll play 12. He'll play 28. You never know where it's going to land. But there's no Bam here. And in a matchup, Luke Kennard out.
Okay.
Atlanta guys just look a little bit better now.
Yeah, I would say probably Keaton Wallace in the rotation then.
He's going to be picking up probably a decent chunk of time now. Well, like, obviously Jovic can play the 5 against Musa Diabate or whatever sort of like small front they go to. I think he's ripe to be like a really weird pivot tonight, and would not be no one would be shocked if he played 30 minutes today. That just happens all the time with him. If he were power forward center eligible, I would like extra special love this, but I still want to get to at least a little bit. Worst case scenario with this being an 8 o'clock start, if it turns out like I've got a good lineup and I can swap him to a better option that's not as risky, great. If I've got a bad lineup and he's in it, great. Like then I can keep him around. But he's underrepresented here for what this can be with no Bam Adebayo.
Yeah, I love the shout out on Jovic. So I expect him to kind of play like the small ball 5. Like I would be very surprised if you see Vlad Golden play. So Jovic, I think will back up Ware, and then I think can obviously play some alongside him as well. And then things would get really interesting too if Larson gets ruled out. He was a late day add. I think it was with an illness, Larson. Yeah. So like Correct. If he gets ruled out, that's going to open up more minutes. I don't know who would start. Like Jovic could start him if Larson gets ruled out. Do you have like a strong lean on who do you think would start if Larson doesn't play?
I feel like they would just keep Hawkes on the bench because he just becomes redundant with Wiggins. And I could see that being Fontecchio. He just goes out there, plays some defense, stands in the corner and shoots threes for like 6 minutes till they start making subs. I think Jovic is equally as likely.
Yeah, that would be my guess. Would probably be one of Fontecchio or Jovic. But yeah, I mean
Jovic, do you want me to be really honest? If Yakashonis is available, it's probably him.
That's true. Like he honestly could.
It's Miami. They're stupid as hell. They'll just start him immediately for some random game when they could do that if somebody's out. Why not? What do they care? That's exactly what they would do.
Yeah, I would not be surprised about that either. But yeah, so really like the Jovic shout too. We know Khalil Ware is going to be popular. I guess we didn't really talk about Khalil Ware. Like right now, he stands out. He's my favorite center play on the slate. He's 5,600 with Bam Adebayo off the court. Going back to last year, he's averaging about 17 rebounds per 100 possessions. He's a different player when Bam's off the court. We saw if you go look at his preseason game logs. I know it's the preseason, but this guy was putting up huge numbers. And the ceiling is massive on him when Bam is not there. So really like Khalil Ware. I'm way higher on him than the current ownership. So love Khalil Ware. And then since I do expect Ware to be pretty popular, like you said, like Jovic is getting no ownership. So I think you could realistically play them both. But yeah, Jovic is going to be completely unowned. And as you mentioned, I don't have a ton of confidence in the minutes, but if he's playing well, you could very easily see Jovic push for that 30-minute mark. So yeah, I really like that call on Jovic at 1%.
I really, really, really hope that one comes to fruition. It would be nice to see. On the FanDuel side for this one, Charlotte, Miami, 76% ownership to Trey Mann, 35, call it, for Knipple, Bridges, and Ware. So very different there. Davion Mitchell at 25, Hawkes at 20, Wiggins, Powell, Simpson, all at 10. So a different distribution, still Trey Mann at the top. Keep your eye on this one still as well with regards to KJ Simpson, because if for some reason it ends up being KJ Simpson over Trey Mann, KJ Simpson's going to rise dramatically. Trey Mann will still be very interesting because he's going to play these minutes one way or the other.
Yeah, and I think if Trey Mann doesn't start, he's still going to play a lot, and I still think he's most likely going to close the game too.
Alrighty, hit that like button if you haven't done it yet, folks. 15 minutes to go, and then you get to live before lock with Greg and Spags. And the real fun thing is we don't stop at 7 either. We go to playback, playback.tv/Stokastic. You want to be there. The whole slate is going to lock in the time that we are live on playback, watching games, talking about late swaps, talking about news. There's no better place to be in the DFS industry than watching our playback stream, because we're going to cover everything that pops up. I don't know if we're going to talk about any sort of future playback surprises. Probably not, but they might be coming. Come watch us on playback. Dallas Mavericks, Memphis Grizzlies. Not too much coming in here. Daniel Gafford was much more popular earlier today before everything got weird. PJ Washington, Ja Morant, Daniel Gafford, all around 15% owned. Everybody else in single digits. Gafford, I think, looks really good here. The minutes are starting to creep up. He doesn't have much threat behind him. No problem with it. PJ Washington, just small forward, which is kind of annoying, but he's playing massive minutes right now for Dallas. So I get that one as well. And if you're going to go to anybody from Memphis, I could understand going to Ja Morant. Jaren Jackson Jr. has not been very good thus far. What do you like here?
Yeah, so I think Gafford's the easiest to get to looking at the salaries. He's $5K. He's one of my favorite center plays on the slate. He's played mid-20s minutes over the last couple of games. Going back to last year, he's a 1.22 fantasy point per minute player, so good point per minute. I think you could see like 28 minutes here for sure. So, yeah, I think Gafford stands out as one of the better center plays on the slate. You mentioned PJ Washington. He's playing massive minutes, 7,200, just kind of doing everything for the team. The rebounding numbers are up, too, with Anthony Davis off the court. So I think he's a totally fine filler option at his ownership, which is about 15%. And then on the Memphis side, Ja Morant coming in a little above 10% at 8,600. So for most of the start of the season, he was averaging around 30 minutes. But over the last couple of games, he's been averaging about 35 minutes per game, which is good to see. And in those 2 games, he's averaging about 20 potential assists per game too. So I like the upside here on Ja. And we haven't really seen like the big Ja Morant game yet. Like his highest fantasy point game was, I think, opening night where he put up 45. So I think, 35 minutes of Ja Morant, you could definitely see a pretty big game here. So I like him a good amount at his current ownership. Not a ton of ownership coming to the rest of these guys. So D'Angelo Russell started, which I've been talking about. They finally did it. They moved Klay Thompson to the bench. He's 6,300, but of course, in typical Jason Kidd fashion, he starts and only plays 20 minutes. Off the bench, he was playing
awful.
Yeah, he was really bad.
He was awful. I jammed him. I played so much of him. It went so poorly.
Yeah, I had him too. I was pretty tilted. So the ceiling is there with D'Lo. If he can not play awful and to stay on the court, like 30 minutes of D'Lo at no ownership, I think is a little bit interesting. So if he starts again, I do have some interest there. If he really struggles, then they're going to go to more Brandon Williams at 3,600. I think it's kind of tough to make the argument for Brandon Williams in this slate. But again, he was the guy that benefited with D'Lo really struggling last game. And like a little bit less than 10% ownership to Coward and Cooper Flagg. Again, the role's been really solid for Coward as the 6th guy off the bench. Cooper Flagg, I'm kind of indifferent on. Would have been nice if he had forward eligibility, and probably not going to get to anyone else. I mean, Marshall, Max Christie. I think I prefer, the Nets value or the Hornets value to those guys.
Yeah, there's not a ton in this one that I think I have to add. I'm going to hop over to FanDuel quickly so we can look at Dallas and Memphis just to give you guys the intricacies. And there is a big one. Ja Morant is 7,800 on FanDuel and 48% owned. Get the finger guns out for that one, baby. That is a lot of ownership. You got to get to Ja. 15% ownership to Russell, Washington, Coward, Flagg. This is a function of the roster building at FanDuel. You have to have 2 point guards. You have to have 2 shooting guards. You're locked into that. And that's what causes some of these disparate ownerships between both sites. This is how somebody like Ja, when he's like a little bit more of a value, can be way different in ownership because you're forced to add up all of your point guard ownership to 200. Sometimes you can't do that all that easily. 2 more to go. Chicago, Milwaukee. We do have a popular man in this game that we need to talk about. Been off to a hell of a start so far offensively. Giannis Antetokounmpo, 11,600, power forward only, 30% owned. Definitely the best play on the day, I think, in terms of like guys that could go insane. $9,300 Josh Giddey, point guard only, 27% owned, has been playing great. Looks really good in this matchup. Fun matchup as well for the NBA Cup. No real ownership coming in anywhere else, and we are waiting on a Q tag for Io DeSumo. How do you feel about these two high-owned payups?
Yeah, I like them both a lot. Obviously, keep an eye on
Yeah.
the Io news. He's missed the last couple of games. The minutes have ticked up on Giddey. Like he's played 38 minutes over the last couple of games. So the role's been really solid for Giddey. This game has shootout potential written all over it. The one downside I will say with Giannis, again, it's just been the minutes, right? He's only had one game where he's played over 33 minutes so far this year, which is kind of crazy to say out loud. But, in an NBA Cup game, I could see him, playing 35 plus minutes for sure. So, the ceiling's massive on him, especially against Chicago. And then, Giddey role has been amazing. Potential assist, great. Really good rebounder. And, I like the spot for him too. So those are the two guys getting a lot of ownership. And I agree. I like them both quite a bit here. The rest of both these teams, it's kind of hard to get to anyone else. Vooch at 8K, I think is playable as a contrarian center option.
Oh,
Jalen. Oh, sorry.
Pause. Keyshawn George ruled out.
Okay. So
Not to be confused with Keyshawn George, who is a person that doesn't exist because that's not how his name is said.
So unfortunately, that Washington value is going to be a little bit more in play now too. But
yes, it is. I promise you guys, the Live Before Lock crew will be taking care of all of that and the projection updates that will be coming in, as long as you guys hit the like button. Otherwise, the screen will go black and you'll never get the show. DK, it's all yours.
Okay. So Jalen Smith over the last 4 games has basically been playing all the non-Vooch minutes, which is good to see. Yeah. 3,500. I do think, he's a good point per minute player. He's viable in tournaments. If Vooch gets in foul trouble here, he benefits. So in a large field tournament, I think he's playable. Don't really think I can get to anyone else. The role's been solid for Cole Anthony off the bench over the last couple of games, but his price is up. And we just have so many good value guard plays on this slate. So overall, I would say it's, for the most part, it's Giannis and Giddey, and they're two of my favorite spend ups for sure.
On the FanDuel end for both of these guys, Milwaukee and Chicago, stop me if you've heard this story before. We just told this story 2 minutes ago. Jeremy Sohan in, that's not the story I was talking about. Kelly Olynyk in, also not the story I was talking about. But Giannis and Josh Giddey are both close to 30% owned on FanDuel, just like DraftKings. A little bit more coming into Ryan Rollins and Trey Jones, but sub 10%. Everything is the same here, folks. Don't stress between sites for this one. And that leads us to our final game of the night. Again, you got to hit that like button. Otherwise, the stream will just absolutely evaporate at 6 o'clock. And you will not be able to hear anything with regards to the news going on in the NBA. Utah Jazz, 12.5 point dogs in Minnesota. 233 total. Not great. Anthony Edwards, available. Dante DiVincenzo, available. 15% ownership to an $8,900 shooting guard Ant, who gets to face Utah, and Yusuf Nurkic, who plays center. 10% ownership to Yusuf Nurkic at 6,300, who has to face Minnesota. How do you feel about this game? Because no one else is getting any ownership, but how healthy is Ant?
Yeah, I didn't watch the game last game. Did he not look 100%?
I don't have the slightest idea.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the matchup's great. So he was pacing for like 35 minutes last game if the game would have stayed competitive. So I would say, it's close to 100%. Maybe not 100%, but So I think Anthony Edwards obviously in play at that price point in this matchup. Just a matter of, can Utah keep the game competitive? Obviously, pretty big dogs here. The rest of Minnesota, I think it's hard to get to. Again, a lot of these guys are priced up from when Anthony Edwards was out, so he's back. Kind of hard to get to anyone else there. Utah, really the only guy getting some love is Nurkic, 6,300. Minutes have been really good for him. 31, 33 minutes over the last couple of games. We know Nurk's a good point per minute player, so I think he's playable. Obviously don't love the spot for him, but if you're going to continue to play Nurk around 30 minutes, he's still definitely in play at that salary. Keontae George at 7,300, I think is tough to get to. I think it's kind of hard to get to Lauri Markkanen as well. But if Utah does keep the game competitive, one of those guys at least has got to have a really good game. And then, yeah, I don't trust anything else with this Jazz rotation. I know the role's been solid for Steve Mikhailuk, but can't go to him at 5,100. So, yeah, I'm passing on everyone else there for Utah.
We just got a super chat from Dave Burke or Dave Burke-E. There's no telling because this is just text and there's no way for me to know that. Engelman, we've been together for years, brother. You just never knew it. Creepy. What's your top 3 value plays? I'm cooking a parlay: points, rebounds, and apple. Interesting. I don't know which apple you're going to choose. I can't eat apples. So how do you like them apples? Unfortunately for me. Anyway, top 3 value plays. Well, it depends how you're classifying value. If you mean like all the way down in the salary tier, I think KJ Simpson is going to be the best option at 3,500. If you're willing to come up a little bit more into the 4s, Trey Mann is the best value that exists on this slate right now. And if you're looking likely for another cheapie, I mean, at this moment, it is likely $4,500 small forward Trey Mann. Do you want to beat Eric to the punch here? Do you have any Cam Whitmore interest now with Keyshawn George out?
Let's see. Whitmore, 3,500. I think he's playable. I still don't have a ton of confidence in the minutes, but I would say he's playable in a large field tournament.
Okay. There's something there. Look, when he's out there, if they get bludgeoned, does he get any extra time? Because that dude's going to shoot the ball when he's out there. So, are you boys having a 3-way after this? You guys can't see what I'm seeing. And it's not a boys 3-way, but there are 3 additional men in the back end of the StreamYard right now. And it's going to be really fun for them to try to figure out which one of them are on today's show. Hey, DK, tell the people where to find you and how awesome Tails is and that they should download the Tails app. But tell them about you.
Yeah, so you guys can find me over on Tails. Currently doing prop content for sportsbooks, pick'em stuff, as well as DFS stuff. So DFS stuff, focus more on game theory. I do a stream every day before lock. Yeah, hit a Westbrook triple double the other day. That one felt good. So that was one of my bigger long shot wins overall. So big Westbrook fan.
I have a question for you with regards to that bet.
Mm-hmm.
Were you happier to win the bet or for the people that responded to the bet to not understand it?
Wait, can you say that
because
again?
There were a lot of very unsmart people in your replies.
Oh, yes, there were. Yeah, there was a lot of people like tailing it too at like plus 1,300, plus 1,500. I was like, well, the Valley's kind of gone now, but
yeah, slightly different bet at that number.
Right.
Why didn't you bet the triple double, DK? Tell the people before we get out of here and turn it over to Live Before Lock.
Yeah, so it was actually better value building it out that way. I think it was before the Sabonis and Levine news. I think it was like plus 3,500 for triple double on DraftKings. But if you built it out with 10 plus rebounds, 10 plus assists, it was plus 6,000.
That's simple, folks. Don't let them rook you. Dig into it. Follow guys like DK and more on Tails. And when you do it through the app that you also rate and review on either the iTunes, whatever it's called, App Store and Google Play Store, I believe. They should change that name. But either App Store, 5-star review. If you like it, I can't require it, but you should do it either way. And it looks like when they went into the Thunderdome, 2 men entered and 1 man left. And that man was Eric Lindquist. Hello, Chris Spags.
I won. I alphaed him out. He saw me here and he's like, I guess I just can't do the show today, but sorry to all you guys out there.
Coward.
Eric Herring. I get it.
Which also 100% Eric Lindquist's fault and nobody else's. This is absolutely verified. There is an internal schedule that I post in our Slack channel every single day. It does not have Eric on the show. We have a Google Doc with who's on each show. Eric is not on that one either, and he just showed up here anyway.
When he came into the room, I was just like, he's not supposed to be here. And then once Spags popped up, I was like, this is going to be fun.
It would have. I'm kind of surprised he didn't notice just looking around that something was amiss. It was only a couple of minutes, but I texted him and he figured it out and he looked at the schedule.
Not the brightest bulb, that Eric Lindquist.
No. But it's all right. You need some other idiots around to make other people look better, right? Because DFS, it's always an exchange. Like there could only be the less sharp people feeding money to the sharper people. This is why there's many reasons we keep Eric around. That's one of them.
Sure is. Sure it is. All right, I'm going to get out of here. I promise I won't hit end stream like I'm Chris Spags.
You know what? You do it one time with a career of being correct, mostly, at least at not ending streams early. But I get it. I did it. I did do it. I did the crime.
Josh, DK, bye. Have a good night. And Josh and I'll be back on playback in 59 minutes. So I'll see you guys over on, Josh, I'll see you on playback in 59 minutes. For everybody else, it is time for the start of NBA Live Before Lock. Do us a favor if you've not done it yet. Like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I am joined here by not Eric Lindquist, but Chris Spags. We decided that the show needed an upgrade for tonight. So Eric, he's working on some other projects. Spags here with us. And we've already got some news that we're going to have to hit on. Of course, the lineups that I had built out prior to the show, they are no longer relevant. I'm going to have to rerun everything with the data. I think 90% of these shows start off with me saying that, but that's what happens when Keyshawn George, who is now a pretty important player for the Washington Wizards, is not going to be playing tonight. But Spags, I want to know from you, how are you feeling about this slate? And is there anything in general that you have your eye on heading into the start of the show?
Yeah, I mean, for me right now, a lot of what I'm trying to do is just kind of get my exposures to a more reasonable amount because some of these guys coming up now, wasn't really emotionally prepared to play. A lot of Alex Sarr going against Cleveland, but he is a guy that jumps out to me a little bit more with Keyshawn George being added to the list of Wizards not playing, Bilal Coulibaly also out, and very small sample size stuff for Sarr, but he's averaged 1.7 fantasy points a minute this year and under 100 possessions without Keyshawn George and Coulibaly out there. So he's now a part of my picture. But at this point, Greg, I just feel like it's strapping in, mostly hoping that we don't get any other weird injuries because the Charlotte situation, LaMelo Ball being out, Sexton being out, that's one curveball where I want to know who the starters are to feel really good about things there, if it's going to be Trey Mann or KJ Simpson. And then now for Washington, I want to know if anybody else besides Sarr is going to look good because really the Wizards are still mostly a dumpster fire team.
Yeah, and we did recently get a projections update. Let's see, ownership, that is also updated. So let's look at the Washington Wizards, and we'll look at them on DraftKings as well as FanDuel, see what the projections are now looking like for Washington. I'll start by ownership, just so we have like a general idea of where the field is going the most. We've got Justin Champagnie, 22% owned, which makes sense. He's been starting as of late, and now makes sense that he would pick up a couple of extra minutes here. He's also very cheap at $3,400. Bub Carrington, who was, from a real-life perspective, not good at all during his rookie season. The rookie class last year was mostly dog shit, but Bub Carrington was a pretty good fantasy producer when he got some run on the court. So we've got him, 21% owned, and here is the aforementioned Alex Sarr Spags. He's projecting for 15% ownership. We've got him in for 37 fantasy points at $6,900. Carrington was 24 fantasy points at $4K, and then Champagnie, 21 fantasy points at $3,400. What is your initial reaction to these projections?
I mean, I'm really, for my data, which does weight this season a little bit more than, frankly, it should. But, that's the thing. When you have Stokastic data, you compare the longer-term sample size. I like to isolate how guys are playing this year. Sarr has been a monster to start the year with everybody who's been out of the Washington rotation. He's averaging 1.42 fantasy points a minute. The last two games, I think it was the last one he put up 55. The one before that put up over 45 fantasy points. I definitely feel like Sarr is a guy that, is playing well already, and I already had some exposure to. But now I am getting him a lot more. My projection is over 40 for him, which feels a little bit lofty. But Champagnie, I think, looks okay. Bagley also looks like an okay value. Center only, but $3,200. But really, the Wizards kind of thought would gain more when you take Coulibaly and Keyshawn George out. McCollum and Middleton still really not popping at all for me.
Supreme Juice 69 in the chat, the man who is atop the leaderboards frequently over on Tails. You guys could see for free. They'll be going to tails.bet or downloading the Tails app. And Supreme Juice, Eric's arch nemesis, says, bring Eric back. It's been a while since he let us know that he's 6'2". It's also been a minute since he let us know that you, Supreme Juice, were number one on the leaderboard and that Eric was, in fact, not number one. So that is another reason that, Eric's hanging out in chat. He could always post in chat and be like, hey, shout out to number one, Supreme Juice, and just, let everybody know what's up on that standpoint. But initial reaction here. Number one, obviously, I want to see the starting lineup for the Wizards. Blowout, a little bit of a concern as well. Spread is about 14 points the last time I looked. That's actually going to be the one thing that probably prohibits me from getting to Alex Sarr than anything else. At 37 fantasy point projection and 15% ownership. As you'll see here, Spags, we haven't projected for 29 minutes. I do think the blowout risk adds a lot of volatility to Alex Sarr's playing time. In addition, he's just somebody who frequently finds himself in foul trouble. So a little bit of volatility with his minutes. He's certainly going to show up in lineups, but somebody who in other circumstances I think would be kind of like more like a jam play on this slate and show up in like 30 to 40% of lineups. I'm interested to see whenever we run the Sims how often he shows up. And then between Champagny and Carrington, another one is going to kind of depend a little bit on the starting lineup. Neither of them look like can't miss options, but they both look like pretty solid value options on the low end.
Yeah, I mean, to me, they're so far behind the Charlotte guys. So that's part of the issue I'm having here where like Simpson projects better, let alone Trey Mann for me. So I'm not really getting the fringe Washington guys coming up as much, but I would agree. Like, Washington, a lot of guys now around 20 fantasy points and a 5 to 6x value. They'll come up. I don't know if they're the most exciting place in the world or place you want to trust for all the reasons that Greg just mentioned.
And over on the FanDuel side of things, where the players are priced more aggressively, there's pretty much no ownership going to Washington. The most popular player is Bub Carrington, 8% owned. What's different? Champagny is $3,800 as opposed to the $3,400 price tag he has on DraftKings. And then Sarr is actually $7,500 instead of $6,900. So the Washington value, it is not nearly as pressing over on the FanDuel side of the slate, much more so on DraftKings that we're seeing it pop up. And if you guys do have any questions for us, by the way, as we go throughout the show, tag me in Discord. If you are a Stokastic sub, I'm always looking for any questions that you guys have for us. And that is something that is a perk of being a Stokastic sub. If you sign up with any of the links down below in the YouTube description box, or you sign up with one of our affiliate partners, which for each one you sign up for, you get 1 free month of Stokastic Core access. All that comes with access to our Discord. And we do have a question here from Coach DFS Spags. He wants to know, who are the must plays for single entry? If you're building a single entry lineup right now, who are the players that you feel like you could not go without in that lineup?
I mean, I think Trey Mann would probably be the first one for me, assuming that he starts. But even if he didn't, I think he'd still project fairly well. But if he didn't start, KJ Simpson, swap him accordingly. And I think that he would be that exact same guy. I personally, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, Greg. I think Mann and Simpson both in play because basically it's been a lot of court time where it's been Sexton and Mann together. Last game with LaMelo out, those guys were sharing enough court time. It was basically 2 of those guys or Connaughton out there last time out. KJ Simpson was rotating in as well. But I think it's still going to be a lot of Mann and Simpson together. They have played together. I don't think they're direct backup situations. So I would say Mann and Simpson, but would you feel differently about that, Greg, for a single entry?
I wouldn't necessarily say must play. I do think Trey Mann is a must play in single entry just because he projects so well and he's such a good value. I think KJ Simpson in play for single entry, but wouldn't quite call him a must play in the way that the question was asked of us. But I don't have any issue with playing them together. Simpson being $3,500, Mann being $4,900 with how shorthanded the Hornets are in the backcourt. It's a big enough slate to where there's only 3 guys right now that I would consider must plays, Spags. One of them is Trey Mann. And we're talking a DraftKings single entry, by the way. Another one is going to be Khalil Ware with Bam Adebayo out for tonight. And then the third one for me is going to be Giannis. This is something DK talked about on the Deeper Dive show right before this. Giannis is obviously having a great fantasy production season on a points per minute rate. The one thing that's held him back is that the playing time hasn't been super robust for him this year. We've seen the Bucks be pretty cautious with the playing time for Giannis, but more often than not, we see teams really do give a shit about the NBA Cup. So in terms of what does the NBA Cup matter to today's fantasy value, I actually don't think there's any player who benefits more than Giannis because I think it drastically changes his minute ceiling versus what we've seen from the rest of the year. So Giannis, he's the most popular pay up option on the slate, but I think it's very warranted, kind of specifically because of the NBA Cup setting.
No, I think it's reasonable in the matchup alone. I mean, I think even if it weren't the NBA Cup, the fact you're facing Chicago in a game with a pretty big total, that's enough to put me there. And obviously Chicago's defense, you're not super worried about the rim protection there. Not that you'd be worried about that for anybody with Giannis, but I think for single entry, I would find it hard to say like he's a must play for me, because I do think there are some lineups that look good when you spend that money more in the 6K range. You play a Giddey, who I like a lot today, but the ownership is, I mean, still pretty much there, but not quite as much as Giannis. I like Giannis. I like Giannis and Giddey together. I would consider that for a single entry, even though also not must play territory.
So you may have tipped your hand a little bit here, but I am curious if you do not consider Giannis to be a must play in single entry. You mentioned Giddey's name, so I assume he's the answer, but maybe I'm incorrect. Who's your favorite pivot off of Giannis for tonight's slate?
So it would be Giddey to me. I have him projected for a little bit over 50. I mean, he's been a monster, and it certainly helps that he paid off last game with a triple double. There's definitely a little bit of, I feel like, of risk for Milwaukee, or at least how we view Milwaukee, historically as a team that can be tougher defensively, in particular on lead ball handlers. But Giddey, to me, the rates that he's putting up this year, averaging over 1.4 fantasy points per minute so far, clearly benefiting from the lack of Kobe White, and last game certainly benefiting from a Dosunmu also being out of the rotation. But you're talking about a guy that's got a 28% usage rate, 40% assist rate, rebounds at a 16% clip. He's kind of my ideal player. We do a little bit of everything. And obviously we can keep making our jokes about him and his torrid history of 17-year-olds in Newport Beach, but gosh darn it, he plays good fantasy basketball. So he's the guy for me. And then just kind of getting more of that 6K range to 7K, like Michael Porter Jr. I like Claxton. I like Sarr. To me, it's just kind of a more balanced build, plus Giddey, maybe Cade Cunningham a little bit on top.
So I have a pivot that I feel like I bring him up as a pivot whenever he's not all that popular, but I think it's for good reason. That's going to be Wemby, who this is a little bit more so for FanDuel than DraftKings, but still applies to both sites for me. But if you do look at the FanDuel projections, we've got Wemby for 58 fantasy points. We've got Giannis for 62. So Giannis certainly projecting better, but Giannis 39% owned, whereas Wemby is only 6% owned. And now look on the DraftKings side of things. If we look at the DraftKings ownerships here, we've currently got 37.5% ownership going to Giannis. We've got Wemby projected for sub 1% ownership for Wemby. He's overpriced, no doubt about it. But for the kind of ceiling he has, I think that 0.3% ownership is a crazy low amount of exposure the field is getting to Wemby at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this hit literally on shows you and I have done together where it's like, okay, the field's going to Giannis. And granted, it was not this much of a price discrepancy where, I mean, like Greg mentioned, you have a really steep price tag for Wemby, but the ceiling is there. The matchup is also tough. Like you're talking about a match versus Houston compared to a matchup versus Chicago. Like it all favors Giannis, but ultimately, I agree that Wemby has a ceiling. It just, I kind of feel like you have to hold your nose almost entirely on projection, given the fact that he is, 700 more expensive than Giannis and projects for like 8 fantasy points less. That's tough math, but that is what makes him a tournament play for sure for the large field stuff.
Yeah, so that's a pivot that I like, and it's very much driven on ownership. Like if Wemby was even 12% owned, and then it's only a 3x ownership gap, that's a little bit different, but based on our current ownership here, Giannis is being owned at like 100-to-1 clip compared to Wemby. It's a massive gap. And I think if you played this slate out 100 times per our current ownership, I don't think Giannis outscores Wemby only once in those scenarios. So the ownership gap is just massive between the two.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's one of those plays that, like, if you're just running an optimizer, you're not going to get it so much. If you're running a sim, you do start to get a little bit more, especially as you up uniques and stuff like that. But definitely, it's like a hold your nose play, but it's not really, because he gets to play Wemby, who's probably one of the most fun guys to play in DFS right now.
Yeah. Whenever we get these scenarios where you can get him at really low ownership, that's something that I have been pro the last couple of seasons when it comes to Victor Wembanyama. We got a question here from Discord. By the way, Pelle Larsson is available to play. That's important. He was a late add to. We've actually seen this a lot this year, which I think is kind of bizarre. Historically, if players are a late day downgrade to questionable with an illness, they almost rarely ever end up playing. I think they've played 100% of the time this year. We saw it with Grayson Allen yesterday, Pelle Larsson tonight. For whatever reason, guys It used to be guys got sick, they weren't playing. Now, I don't know if they're getting tougher. Maybe the injury report is getting a little stricter or something, but guys are playing through illnesses.
Keyshawn George today, though, he was a
That's
downgrade, and so I mean, like, I think it's been. I think you're biased saying that they're playing more, but it does feel like whatever the most inconvenient outcome is tends to happen, and that's always the nature of NBA DFS. I feel like
this is not incorrect. Yeah, you are right. George was also an illness, but Pell Larson also an illness. But like in the past, that was just something I always stood by. If somebody was a late day downgrade with I would just assume they aren't playing, and I would zero them out. But handful of, I'm definitely overstating it's 100% because per you very correctly pointing out I was wrong. Another guy who is a key player was ruled out just about 15 minutes ago with an illness. So maybe a little bit of recency bias for me, just a little bit. Let's see.
You were right enough. I think you could claim the victory lap. I shouldn't have pushed back and be like, "Yep, 100%, guys. Fade them always."
Let's see what we've got here. One is from Keone Hunter. Keone says that he has $11,800 for a power forward and a forward. What is the best combo? One entry into the sixth man, the 600 person contest. All right, so we're gonna have to do a little bit of math here and do some educated guesses, Spags. Well, I guess not educated guesses, but we're gonna have to do some quick math in our head. He's got $11,800 for a power forward and a forward. Who should he be filling his salary with?
All right, I'm trying to sort in a way that I can answer this question intelligently. 11-8.
That's what I'm doing too. All right.
I mean, Porter Jr. would be a guy I would prioritize, but I'm not sure. Then we have to do the rest of the math. And 4,800, not a lot of guys. I would go Porter Jr. and Terrence Mann, actually.
Oh, that's actually a really good combination. Now, I know the response is going to be he already has Terrence Mann in his lineup because this never works. These questions, I'm going to once again make a general statement here that's probably incorrect, but is roundabout correct. Whenever we've gotten these questions, they're never as simple as they appear to be. That's never the case. I guarantee the follow-up's going to be, well, I already have Mann in the lineup. If you do not have Mann in the lineup, I think that is a very, very justified angle to go down. If you do have Mann in the lineup, let's see. What are the other ways you could go? If you put in Clowney at 3,900, that would give you enough money to get to, let's see. You could go, I don't mind. Wiggins and Clowney works.
Oh, that's fun. I like Wiggins.
I'm going to say, assuming you already have Mann, I'm going to say Wiggins and Clowney.
Yeah, I mean, look, I like the Nets today because you take Cam Thomas off the court. That's just so many possessions that are now going to flow around. And we kind of saw it hit last game out for Brooklyn where Claxton went nuts, Porter Jr. went nuts. Even, Martin had a decent game. I like the Nets a lot today, even though the Detroit matchup could be softer for sure.
And the next super chat here is from Malcolm Revamp. He wants to know who should he be playing in DraftKings tiers tonight. So Spags, I'm going to pull up tiers here. And we'll go through some of these tiers. So tier 1. Ooh, tiers contest bigger today. 5K to first. I think that's the biggest I can remember it being the entire year.
Huh. Tiers is getting more popular, huh?
No, probably not, but it's just marginally bigger for today.
Okay, fair enough. So maybe people like the simplicity of it more than I realized.
Tier 1, Giannis, Wemby, Cade Cunningham, Anthony Davis, with no salary cap to really consider here. I'm going to say Giannis. So once again, Giannis should be quite a bit more popular than Wemby in tiers. If you have an otherwise popular lineup, I don't think Wemby's a bad pivot here, but I'll say Giannis for tier 1.
Yeah, the projection, it's too much of a difference for me. So I'd take Giannis for tiers.
Tier 2, Giddey, LaMelo, who's out, Şengün, Banchero. So usually, I don't know how this happens. It does seem like tiers, there's at least one player's out in every single tier each night. But anyway, tier 2. So we have Giddey, Şengün, and Banchero to choose from. That's pretty easily Giddey for me.
Yep, go with the Giddler.
All right. Is that his new nickname?
Well, that was it when he was the 17-year-old. People are like the Giddler because it sounds like the Diddler. It also sounds like a Batman bad guy. It's got a lot going for it, but poor Josh.
Quite the origin story. Tier 3, we've got a couple of Cavs, Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley. We've also got Jalen Johnson. We've also got Miles Bridges in tier 3 and Anthony Edwards. I'm actually going to go with Ant Edwards here. I know that he didn't play a ton of minutes his first game back. We only saw him play 29 minutes after missing a handful of games, but they lost the game by 23 points to the Knicks. I'm actually pretty bullish on Ant getting back to a full workload today and potentially getting a little bit overlooked. So I'm going to go with Anthony Edwards in tier 3.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable one. It feels like Ant's just a little bit, I mean, where it actually is a salary, not in tiers, a little bit mispriced. But I would go Miles Bridges still. I think just the upside there. Same thing, yeah, same principle rather, as we just talked about with Brooklyn. You're taking away LaMelo, you're taking away Sexton, you're still taking away Brandon Miller, another guy who's, should have usage in that offense. It all flows towards Miles Bridges, basically. So I think he's a strong play today, even though he's the Hornet I'm probably the least above the field on right now.
Tier 4, Julius Randle, Lauri Markkanen, Scotty Barnes, Jaylen Brown, Amen Thompson, and Ja Morant. I'm going to go with another player who's struggled a little bit this year, but I think is probably going to go a little bit overlooked, is Ja Morant for tier 4.
Yeah, the usage has still been there for him. How much does the SADs take over for him is always the concern point. I'd probably go Jaylen Brown. I feel like he's the only Celtic right now that's playing well, which can obviously mean that he'll find his floor a little bit. But he's shooting, probably unsustainably well with 63% true shooting on the year. But he is shooting well, and he's really the only guy for Boston that it feels like the offense is kind of flowing the right way for right now.
All right, and now moving on to tier 5, we've got Vooch, Kevin Durant. I always find it funny when you see some of these players' names, back to back with each other being considered in the same tier, but Kevin Durant and then Jalen Duren. And then we've got Brandon Ingram, Franz Wagner, Triple J, and then Darius Garland. So for me in this tier 5, I'm going to go with Duren, who is putting up some monster fantasy games to open up the season. Also had, what did he finish with last game? It was 22 points and 22 boards. But I like the matchup he has against the Brooklyn Nets, and I am going to be putting in Duren here for tier 5.
Yeah, I love Duren too. He's playing at a 1.4 fantasy point minute pace on the year. Clearly, he's taking a leap forward. And in tiers, you're not worried about people getting leverage against you with Isaiah Stewart or even Cade. I don't think there was a Cade option here. So yeah, I think that's going to be Duren.
All right. And now the final tier that we have is tier 6, and that is Keontae George, Michael Porter Jr., Stephon Castle, PJ Washington, Derek White, Cam Thomas, who's out. We've got Dyson Daniels, and then De'Aaron Fox, who is also out. So I'm going to go with Michael Porter Jr. in this tier with Cam Thomas out.
Yeah, I love Michael Porter Jr. He's playing incredibly well to start the year, even getting some assists, which is kind of crazy, given what we know of Michael Porter Jr. But I'm heavy on him for DFS, and I think he's the best play in that tier, to me, by a decent margin.
All right, let's see if any other questions came into us while we were going over tiers. We do. Big Boy I wants to know thoughts about Jokic, Wemby, Giannis. Okay, so Wemby, Giannis, or Jokic. So if this is just a scenario where, we're not considering, and if I remember correctly, Big Boy I plays on a little bit different of a fantasy platform. But if we're just considering these 3, no other real considerations other than just who should score the most fantasy points for today, then in that kind of scenario, it's pretty close to me between Giannis and Jokic, but I'll lean a little bit towards Giannis.
I would go Jokic personally, but it's really close as well. But I have Jokic, I think, by, I'm not playing any slates with him today, but I have him by 3 fantasy points. So I would favor Jokic right now.
Yeah, and this is really solely because of the NBA Cup and thinking that Giannis could get some extra minutes. That to me is what puts Giannis just slightly ahead of Jokic. But otherwise, it would be, if this was like a Wednesday slate where it wasn't NBA Cup implications, then the answer would have been Jokic for me. But I think this should benefit Giannis's playing time a little bit. Into the Discord, we go Spags. I think there's a few questions sitting for us here. And then we can also run the nuke of the night after this. I think Eric's been in chat teasing his nuke play for the last 24 minutes or so. So maybe he'll want to chime in with his. I'll have to check the YouTube chat, see if Eric gave one out. But from Discord, Kevin Cash App is asking us a 2v2 question. Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Khalil Ware, or Terrence Mann and PJ Washington. He already has Michael Porter Jr. and Gafford in this lineup, if that matters. So Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Khalil Ware, or Terrence Mann and PJ Washington, Spags?
Man, I like both sides of that. I've got out of that group the most Terrence Mann right now, so I think I'd go with the Terrence Mann grouping. But yeah, it's really close for me.
Let's see. Looking through some of the exposures on the last run that I did, he's got. I am going to go with. Oh, that's why my filters were messed up here. I was trying to figure out why Nickeil Alexander-Walker wasn't showing up. Okay, so Nickeil Alexander-Walker and where. I agree with you. I think it's pretty good looking on both sides. I'll lean towards Man and PJ Washington, but honestly, I think both sides of that are pretty good. I don't have any massive issues with either of those combinations.
Man PJ is a little bit lower owned, right? I think because the other one feels like
Yes.
pure chalk. That one's only like half chalk.
Well, sort of, because we've got. All right, let's look here. We've got DraftKings. What's the total ownership? Because Man is 65% owned. Washington 12%.
We're talking Terrence Mann though, not Trey.
Oh, that I just realized that I overlooked that. That is right. I was looking at Trey Mann and not Terrence Mann. All right. So by the way, that changes my answer to Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Khalil Ware.
Okay, yeah. I think I like PJ because the fact that this is where we're off. I like Terrence Mann overall, but I also like PJ Washington at about 12.5% ownership. I think he's been your best Maverick, I guess, unless you want to give a lot of credit to D'Angelo Russell in his bench time. Starting now, he got yanked around a lot last game. The PJ's like minutes feel like the most sturdy thing on a Dallas rotation that's pretty bad right now. So I like the tournament upside for the Man PJ side, but I agree. Like the other side of it is like chalkier and probably better projected and probably better.
Yeah, and by the way, my bad to Kevin Cash App. I misread. Also, their names. One of them has to change their first name. It can't be Terrence and Trey. You're going to confuse idiots like myself.
It's Rain and Man.
Yeah, yeah. It's just a little. It doesn't have to be T-Man. You could be Aaron's Man, or it could be Rayman. Like Rayman would be a sick fucking name. That was a fun video game too. That's much better than Trey Man. I'd be less confused. He's Rayman from now on.
Barrett Man, I think would be pretty good. Gerald Man.
Yeah.
let's keep naming stuff. Why not? We got another half hour.
Eventually it'll just be here are the name of all the men we know, and we'll just start naming Joe. We'll just Joe Man. That's actually we've got Joe who's on our written team. He's on Tails as Joe Man. There's another one.
Man all over
from Discord here. Win asked us a couple of 1v1 questions. One is Cam Whitmore versus Tyrese Martin. I have to say, this has been a disappointing season for me for Cam Whitmore. I thought he was going to I just thought it was inevitable that he was going to have a big role with Washington. Now that he wasn't behind, so much talent in Houston, somehow is the exact same role with just worse players in front of him. There must be something we don't know about Cam Whitmore that prevents him from getting more playing time. But for Cam Whitmore versus Tyrese Martin, that's Tyrese Martin for me.
Yeah, I think that's got to be easy. Tyrese Martin, he's got a starting role that's, not special or anything, but he's out there. Cam Whitmore, like Greg just mentioned there, like he's kind of fighting to get minutes away, which seems implausible. But even today, with all these guys out, still only projected for 15 minutes by Stokastic. So it doesn't seem like the minutes upside's there unless he gets a surprise start or something.
And then Scotty Barnes or RJ Barrett. Scotty Barnes over RJ Barrett.
Yeah, that's easy. Barnes has been the best producer on that team by a pretty decent margin.
And then we also got a question here from Win. Do we like Giddey today? Yes. Yeah. He's not my favorite pay up option, but I have him in 28% of lineups right now, which is a little bit overweight to the field. And I think he looks pretty solid. I mean, Giddey, I don't know that there's been a recent trade that's been more of a win-win. OKC wins a championship with Alex Caruso. He was a pivotal part of the team. And in the playoffs, previously, Giddey was barely able to crack the rotation. Now Giddey goes to Chicago. He is able to be a primary ball handler there. He has become way better than I personally expected him to ever be. So all-time win-win kind of scenario there for both teams involved in the trade. But yeah, I don't think that Win thinks that Giddey's minutes are going to start to go down. I do not think that is going to be the case.
No, I would say an NBA Cup kind of environment. I mean, same thing that we talked about with Giannis. It's going to be the same thing for Giddey as well. Giddey, I think the one risk you could say is like he hit his ceiling last game because there was one more kind of ball handler, point guard guy out of the rotation. But really, Giddey's been great going back to last year when they took Kobe White and Levine off the court. He's been a killer. So I've liked Giddey for a lot. He did really well for me down the stretch last year, and I'm there again.
And the Master PJ wants to know, what are our thoughts on Bub Carrington for today? He says he currently has him in 25% of lineups. Well, I've got everything updated with our most recent data. I've got him in 20% of lineups right now. I think 25% is a perfectly reasonable amount to get of Bub Carrington. The one thing that would normally be a caveat for me to getting to a decent amount of a guy like Carrington would just be that he locks in the first game of the slate. But with that said, Spags, and we could briefly have a conversation about this before we go ahead and do the nuke of the night, we've got enough of the early injury information now that there really aren't that many things we're waiting on here. Like Karis LeVert is questionable. Starting lineups are always subject to change. We don't know exactly who the Hornets are going to start, but I don't feel like I have to avoid that Cleveland-Washington game or the Boston-Orlando game just because it doesn't seem like there's a ton we're going to be late swapping with after lock.
Yeah, I guess maybe you would theoretically want some flexibility for what you're trying to do with Charlotte, perhaps, because that's 8 o'clock. Yeah, that's the only reason I think I could think of. But to me, the one thing I would say for Carrington is that I straight up have KJ Simpson better projected. So I would favor KJ Simpson and the flexibility. But yeah, Bub Carrington, I mean, he was a guy that mattered to the team last year. It doesn't feel like it this year, but there's only a lot more shots to go around. You take George and Bilal Coulibaly out. Those guys are two of the highest usage guys on the Wizards so far this year.
Yeah, to be clear, I also have more of Simpson than I have of Carrington, but I don't think 25% of him is an unreasonable number with his ability to fill up the stat sheet. But yeah, Simpson is my second highest owned player, sub 5K. The only one I have more of than him is Trey Mann. So two, Charlotte backcourt players who are benefiting from the exact same situation. We just found out also they were doubtful, so this was more or less known. But LaMelo Ball, Colin Sexton officially out for tonight's game. Let's see if we had a couple more super chats. So let's answer the super chats that are waiting here for us, Spags, and then we'll play the nuke of the night animation. We've got here Rob Strum wants to know Ja and Claxton or Jaylen Brown and Kalkbrenner. And then he says, hashtag king of the single bullet, FanDuel tourney play with Giddey and Giannis and Scrubs rounding out the roster. So we got a little bit of an idea here of what he's playing. Stars and Scrubs. He's already got Giddey and Giannis in the lineup. So doing a little bit of a mini game stack there with the two studs. So what do you like for the other two players? Should he go with John Morant and Nick Claxton or Jaylen Brown and Kalkbrenner, who's looked pretty solid in his rookie season?
Yeah, I think I would have Brown and Kalkbrenner a little bit better projected. It's tough, man, because like Memphis, it feels like Josh should have a ceiling that he hits meaningfully, but he's such a little bitch about the situation right now for Memphis, and I'm not sure it's going to get better. But he's had a ton of usage, ton of like assist rate as well. It's still there for him, so he's dominating possessions. I like the tournament upside of John Claxton, but I would probably play Jaylen Brown and Kalk.
There is something funny about Ja doing interviews and just being like, well, I'm just not having fun playing basketball right now. This is no fun. Everything is perspective, because I'm sure people would like if we ever had grievances on a show, people like, how can you complain about what you're doing? And then from the outside viewpoint too, it's like, dude, you're getting paid like $40 million per year to play basketball. How bad could it be where you're moping around everywhere? I think John Morant's going to be fine going forward, though. I actually really like him as a contrarian option today. It is the Morant and Claxton side for myself. Goody says he's trying to smooth out ownership on DraftKings for a 20 max with 4 uniques. That is not getting it done. He says suggestions. He's got 90% of Simpson, 75% aware. So here's going to be a couple suggestions I have for you. Number one, if you have it set on 4 uniques and you're doing ROI downgrade boost to try to get people out of lineups and they're still showing up, kind of tells you our data just really likes those players. But if you absolutely feel like you must limit the amount of exposure getting to players, just do an exposure cap, right? Go into the exposure caps and whatever, because it seems like there's some sort of number you have in mind. Just set Simpson to like 80% and Ware to 50%, whatever it is you want. And that'll make sure that you have a hard cap on them. But if you're doing everything you can to try to get players out of your lineups and they're still showing up in those lineups, you probably just want to be getting a good amount of exposure to them, especially if you got the 4 unique selected already.
Yeah, and especially guys like that too, where they're such obvious values. Like it probably means that opens up everything you need in your lineups to get the guys that have real ceilings and can spike. So yeah, it's gonna be tough with the Sims. I think people try to maybe make the Sims do too much of their own bidding as opposed to listening to it as much as you should.
Eric Goodwin wants to know top 3 plays if only running one lineup on DraftKings. Yeah, in a little bit of a different way, touched on this earlier, but if I was just playing one lineup on DraftKings, the top 3 guys for me to be in it would be Trey Mann, Khalil Ware, and Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah, I wouldn't begrudge that one. For me personally, it's Mann, KJ Simpson, and Giddey, or this is a combo I'm getting the most, but yeah, I think yours is a more logical core that's kind of more well-rounded.
Phoenix Reeves, there was no question attached to the super chat, but I see you left something into the YouTube chat here. He says lineup for DraftKings single entry. He has got all right. Lineup for DraftKings single entry. Simons, Terrence Mann, Giddey, Morant. Those are the guys he's for sure playing. All right. So he's got Anthony Simons, Terrence Mann, Josh Giddey, Ja Morant. Those 5. So then he wants to know for the final 3 players, Michael Porter Jr., Gafford, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Trey Mann, and Giannis. Well, that one only has 2. And then KJ Simpson, Jovic, Champagnie. Okay, so just in terms of, I do one of these combinations, I think you're missing a player, but either way, Trey Mann and Giannis is going to be, and then whoever fits in as the third option is the choice for me.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I'm perplexed by playing Anthony Simons, to be honest. I don't know why you would do that on a slate right now.
Do I have Anthony? He's very cheap today, Simons. Do I have any? I did not get any exposure to him. I do think there's going to be a slate where at Simons' price point, we're just going to see here. I'll sort by just Simons here. Yeah, so Simons is $4,500. There's going to be a game where he doesn't project well for us at all, 22 fantasy points. There's going to be a game where he just makes his shots, and it'll be like, oh, of course, Anthony Simons broke a slate at like 4K or something like that. It's going to happen. I'm not playing him today. There's guys who project better than him. It's such a different role for him in Boston than it was in Portland. He's playing behind Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard now. He certainly has upside at this price point, like I said before. So like I could understand why you would click on him. I just don't get to him in my lineups today because of how much value there is in the backcourts.
I mean, he's playing terribly to start. He's not even shooting that badly. He's at 54% true shooting, which for Simons, that's not too far off where he was at Portland last year, but the usage is down so much. He's not creating assists. He's only averaging 0.8 fantasy points per minute. And I don't think he's unlucky in those departments. He's the 4th lead ball handler on the team. So there's much better value on the slate, I think, than Simons personally.
Philly Phantom wants to know Bub Carrington versus Tyrese Martin for cash. That's Tyrese Martin. And then, he even answers his own question. Oh, super. I love that. Leave a super chat, answer your own question and get the answer right. Yeah, Philly Phantom, totally agree. Bub Carrington versus Tyrese Martin. It's going to be Tyrese Martin. And also, if you're ever stuck in between a couple of players, more often than not for a cash game, the tiebreaker is going to be who's higher owned. And that is Tyrese Martin for today marginally. For GPPs, if it's close between 2 players, I'm generally going to who is the lower owned of the 2 options. And we're all caught up on super chats now, Spags. You know what that means? It means it's time to blow Eric Lindquist's cock off.
Thank God you said top off at the end of that.
No. Please, we don't be gross. Nobody wants to do that. We just want to blow his penis off. So, Spags, it is time for the nuke of the night, which could go in any direction you want it to be. It's which player would you like to nominate as your nuke for tonight's slate? Lots of options, big slate. We got value. We've got low-owned players. I'm curious to know what direction you are looking to go in.
All right, so I'll try to be a little braver. You guys have probably gathered this point, like Josh Giddey, like the Hornets chalk guards, nothing crazy there. I'm going to go Alex Sarr. I just think people won't be willing to play him against Cleveland because of that perceived tough matchup with the big men. But Sarr is playing like the best version of what I thought he could be coming out last year. Kind of thought he's going to come in, you play a little more defensively minded. But without some of the Wizards this year, without Keyshawn George, without Koulibaly, he's getting assists, he's rebounding, getting good usage, he's shooting well, he's hitting threes. Could be wrong today on Sarr. It's one of the toughest matchups he'll probably face in the entire league. But I'll go nuke of the night, Alex Sarr.
Man, this is tough because there's a couple of contrarian pay up options, not like massively contrarian, but somewhat contrarian pay up options that I do like to go to get a little bit different outside of just playing, like Giddy and Giannis. I've touched on a handful of these guys in passing as we've gone about the slate, but I'm going to say Anthony Edwards here at $8,900. So if last game was not a blowout, it looks like he was probably going to play pretty close to a full allotment of minutes. He also comes into this game underpriced relative to his normal pricing, which this just happens a lot on DraftKings and FanDuel. Guys miss a bunch of games due to injury, and then they get priced down during their time away. They come back, and as long as they're unrestricted, nothing has really changed. They're just kind of underpriced, but oftentimes the field still won't really gravitate towards some of those guys. So you've got Anthony Edwards in a good matchup against Utah, sub 9K price point at just $8,900. Normally in this kind of matchup, Ant is going to be like $500-$600 more expensive, but he's also going to be more popular. He's barely over 10% owned. So Anthony Edwards, I like him as a contrarian spend up option for today's Spags. Is he somebody who ended up landing in any of your lineups?
No, because I think the issue for me is that Randall's taken a little too much projection from the time this year where he did go off. Sans Ant, and I'm not going to tweak stuff too much more to try to get to him, but I think your case is really sound. And price sensitivity is something I don't think we talk about a lot on these shows at this point, but it is one of those DFS rules of thumb, like Greg's talking about here, where you're just aware of what Anthony Edwards usually is. He's on a slate where you have a bunch of guys now who are priced for roles that maybe aren't as sturdy as Anthony Edwards is historically. Like I love Giddy, but Ant really deserves the price tag that Giddy has today, and he doesn't have it. So I think that's reasonable, even though I didn't get there.
Yeah, last game that we saw Edwards play in prior to his injury, he was $9,200 against the Pacers, and if memory serves correct, he had a little bit of ownership in that matchup too. So he's cheaper and he's lesser owned than he is the last time that we saw him out there healthy. So my nuke of the night, Ant Edwards. Let's see. I thought there might have been a super chat that came in. We did have one that came in, a couple of them actually that came in while we're doing the nuke of the night. One is from Corey. Corey Shea says, Happy Friday. In my defense, that word nearly impossible to pronounce. Happy Friday, guys. Top 3 single entry options for DraftKings. I feel bad because this is like the 3rd or 4th time we've gotten this question, and I answer it the same way every time because my answer doesn't really change over the course of 10 minutes all that much. But Trey Mann, Khalil Ware, and Giannis.
Yeah, I mean, those ones are still it. Maybe you want to get some KJ Simpson. Stop, you've heard this one. You could play him with Trey Mann today, I think.
Yeah, I don't want to confuse people too much by giving a different answer each time I get that question. But
honestly, that'd be great because then one of them will hit. You'll be like one of those 1-900 like betting tip line guys that used to do shit in the 80s.
Yeah, I could be, that is, I think there's probably still a lot of people who do that. They have like a betting service that they sell on 2 different sites. And it's like, the Monday Night Football game on one site, I'm going to give out the favorite. On the other side, I'm going to give out the underdog. And then no matter what, you have some people who are happy, some people are unhappy. And over time, sure, you've lost money, but you have only, slowly bled out by betting like NFL spreads or something like that. So that is definitely an old hack by scumbags. Before social media was a thing, these were the more traditional ways to say.
That's true. There's no scumbags out there at all anymore. They've been weeded out entirely.
Shout out Vegas Dave, undefeated, undisputed. We're at 14. I know different positions, but KJ. Okay, so he's looking at KJ Martin, Champagnie, or McNeely, and then he wants us to rank them. I do not have McNeely lineups tonight.
I mean, KJ for me, Champagnie, McNeely doesn't get there at all, I don't think.
Yeah, for me, that is going to be, this is pretty easy. KJ 1, Champagnie 2, McNeely 3. That's a easy ranking for me to do here.
McNeely's like a guy away from being a guy away right now in that classic thing.
That's like, there was some, Bruno Caboclo. How was his last name pronounced?
Caboclo? Yeah.
Caboclo. Yeah. Bruno Caboclo. That guy, he was 19 years old for like 10 years. And he was always a year away. And he was long. He could do a little bit of everything, but never got playing time. He was always a year away and it just never quite materialized.
He was also like Greek too, right? And it was like post Giannis, like, this is the new Greek guy. And then I don't think that happened.
I thought he was he Greek or French?
I thought Greek. I could be wrong. I honestly, I haven't paid a lot of attention to he's Brazilian, actually. We're both wrong. It's a totally different part of the globe, too.
Should we keep guessing where he's from?
Well, I mean, yeah, but now that I know the answer, we just not say Brazil. Just keep naming other places that are nowhere. He's Australian. He's
he played for the Raptors, Canadian.
There we go.
Settled. Let's see. Pierre here. FanDuel, thoughts on Nurkic and top plays at each position. So first, Nurkic has always been a really good fantasy producer. It's just more been, there was a point in time he was a good real life player too, but he had that horrific leg injury where he snapped his leg in half, and he was not really quite the same ever since he came back from that. But from a fantasy perspective, he's still been a good pointsman and fantasy producer when he's gotten on the court. Now you got this injury to Walker Kessler, and we're seeing Nurk have some, like Wednesday, what he finished with a ton of rebounds. There was a point, like midway through the second quarter, he had the dumbest stat line of all time. It was like he had 0 points on 0 of 4 from the field, but he had like 11 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals, and a block. So as far as fantasy production goes, yeah, I have no issues with the ceiling that Nurk presents. Let's see, my last run of FanDuel Sims, because I know this was a FanDuel specific question. I got to, good chunk of Nurkic. He is projected for 16% ownership. He showed up in north of 20% lineups for me. So I do think that Nurk looks pretty solid over on FanDuel. For the other part of your question, favorite plays at each position, let's go back and forth here, Spags. I will give out my favorite player at each position for FanDuel, and you do it for DraftKings. So for me on FanDuel, starting at the point guard position, I'm getting to the most of Trey Mann, which, I mean, he just is overwhelmingly the best option point guard on FanDuel.
Yeah, I mean, Trey Mann, he is point guard, shooting guard. So I'll save him for shooting guard then. I'll go Josh Giddey, who's my number 1 point guard option.
Okay. So now at shooting guard for me over on FanDuel, couple of different directions to go. Guards are really not great over on FanDuel. In hindsight now, I wish I would have gone Ja Morant at point guard and Trey Mann at shooting guard. So I'm actually going, I'm going to retroactively change that. I wanted Ja Morant at point guard so that I could say Trey Mann at shooting guard. Who do you have at shooting guard over on DraftKings?
So that's why I saved Trey Mann for shooting guard. I'll go Trey Mann here. If not him, Tyrese Martin, another value shooting guard who has a bigger role opportunity.
Small forward for me over on FanDuel. I'm going to go Miles Bridges with the Hornets shorthanded. Power forward, that is going to be Jalen Johnson for me on FanDuel. Who do you have at power forward on DraftKings?
Power forward on DraftKings, I'd go Michael Porter Jr. I think decently.
Okay. No issues with that at all. Extra usage going to him to be sure. And then at center for me over on FanDuel, Isaiah Stewart continues to be very, very popular there. Khalil Ware, he is your chalk. I do wonder if Jalen Duren ends up being a little bit more popular than this, but we do have sub 20% ownership on FanDuel going to Duren. So yeah, I'm gonna say Duren. Ware's obviously also a really good answer, but relative to ownership, it's Duren for me. For you at center on DraftKings.
Yeah, I mean, Ware is the chalk for sure. I do have more ownership, though, going to sort of pivots off of Ware because that's sort of the way that I'm getting unique on Slate. But I've got Claxton, Duren, Sar above the field, but the obvious play is Khalil Ware.
Our old pal, Tally, he wants to know the top 3 plays on FanDuel for $4,100 and under. All right, let me sort by FanDuel exposures that I have here. 4,100 and under. All right, KJ Simpson, that's an easy one at 3,700. But there's a lot of guys who, I know people always get really obsessed with who are the best cheap options. It's okay to just have not the cheapest imaginable players in lineups because, like he said 41 and under. I assume he picked that price point because Trey Mann is $4,200, so you just wanted the best values underneath him. But there aren't that many good ones. Like, you don't have to play guys this cheap because outside of KJ Simpson, to be honest, I just don't get much exposure to guys under this price range over on FanDuel. KJ Simpson is one. Let's see, who else? I guess I'll say Sion James just because of the Hornets being shorthanded, but he doesn't show up in lineups for me. But since the way the question's answered, kind of have to say somebody. And then I'll say Bub Carrington too.
I would throw Jovic in because I think actually the deeper dive they might have mentioned. I didn't get to watch the whole show, but I thought I heard them saying it. Jovic is sort of a pivot to Khalil Ware. I think that's kind of a fun thing to have in a FanDuel lineup to play him at power forward, and he's 4K, so I put him in the mix too. But I think your other guys, I mean, you could color code short things on Stokastic. There's like 3 players who are green under 4,100, and we just named them all.
And if you guys haven't done it yet, one more reminder to like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are going to be hitting lock in 10 minutes, but that doesn't mean the content is ending. Josh Engelman and I will be over on playback in 10 minutes to react to any kind of late breaking news. If anybody unexpectedly gets ruled out, if we do have any odd starting lineups, which is very possible. It seems like the Hornets, I don't think they give a shit who they start. So we're going to care. We are going to care more about the Hornets starting lineup than they are for today. So that is something that could go in many, many directions over on the playback show. Also, all of the DraftKings games for the main slate, they will all be locked by the time that we're on playback. So there is going to be nothing still left on the table on the DK side by the time we finish that show. So come join Josh and I over on playback in 10 minutes. And while you're here also, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have not already. Let's see what we've got for more Discord questions that came in. One here is from JEW. Favorite players for us to be over and underweight to the field to in a 150 max on DraftKings, Spags?
Favorite players to be overweight on? I mean, Giddey, for me, Giddey, Sarr, this is just my data. This is not me pushing you or anything different. Giddey, Sarr, Michael Porter Jr., really the Nets guys overall coming up a lot for me. Duran. That's my guys.
By the way, we do have the starting lineup for the Wizards. As soon as the projections update, we'll go over some of the updated projections for the Wizards starting lineup. That should be briefly, but here's what we got. It is actually Justin Champagnie coming off the bench, Bub Carrington starting. So it's Carrington, McCollum, Trey Johnson, Chris Middleton, and Alex Sarr in the starting lineup. And we have the projection updates for that in a couple of minutes. We'll throw those up on screen to look over them. But any just initial thoughts you have on Champagnie coming off the bench and Carrington starting?
I mean, it definitely would make that a better play. And really, it's one of those rules. I've said it before, but it always stuck with me that Brian Hooper, friend of Stokastic, Brick 75, has mentioned before, like when in basketball, one of the most important things that, as he viewed it, is that like when you have a guy who looks like a play because, you know, he's going to start and that guy is then not starting, you should almost swap aggressively off that guy, if not take him out entirely. For Champagnie, yeah, he was a guy that people expected to start, and now he's not starting. So I would move off of him. I think Trey Johnson looks more appealing. I think Carrington looks a lot more appealing. I don't love those guys, but they are unequivocally better players than they were 10 minutes ago.
Jason just messaged me that the Wizards starting lineup, that we've been updated for that for a while. So never mind. I thought that which is my bad. I thought the the last projection update that we had did not yet encapsulate the Wizards starting lineup. So my bad. That is on me. We are good to show that right here on screen. And here's what we got now for the ownership on these players, and pretty big changes, Spags, because what ended up happening here is Bub Carrington is now sub 20% owned. You've got Alex Sarr also sub 20% owned. Champagnie, who was, if I remember correctly on the last ownership update, the most popular player that we had projected from the Wizards, he is now just 6% on coming off the bench. He loses pretty much all of his appeal as a bench player to me now. And now Trey Johnson in the starting lineup at $4,200. He's just 9% owned. So we did see much less chalk going to the Washington Wizards in light of the starting lineup.
Yeah, I think that definitely is a move overall. Champagnie falling down seems like a noteworthy thing. I mean, like Trey Johnson, I didn't think was going to be starting. I don't think he's like a world beater play, but he's got some upside. He gets shots up, does a little bit of everything. It's the Wizards are really a team where like nobody's actually good. It's tough. Like there's nobody's does anything that well. But I'll defend Sarr to the death here until they lose by 50 and he does nothing.
Yeah, so I mean, I like the upside of Sarr, both in terms of real life and DFS just in general. There's a ceiling to him. His odds, and this also is the same thing for him with DFS as well as real life, his odds of hitting his ceiling are always kind of slim, but it's always there. Like if you tell me of all the players in last year's draft class, and once again, it was a very shitty draft class, you say, I can only pick one player and you have to bet on their upside. I'm picking Sarr from that draft class. Now the bar is very low because how low the competition is, but I do think that there's a legitimate ceiling there. And then also, if I'm playing anybody from the Wizards in a GPP today, it's going to be Carrington 1 for me on the low end now, just because of what his price point is. But on just a ceiling standpoint, it would be Sarr.
Yeah, I mean, look, I like Sar a lot. I'm going to be over the field on it. Probably be about 2x the field, it looks like, in my final numbers here. It's not the safest stand in the world, but I like the play. And really, the fact that he's put up over 45 fantasy points, let's say 3 times already this year, stands out to me. It's kind of crazy to think about.
He does have the ability to break slates. He had that one game, was it last week, where he scored like 60 fantasy points or something like that. I think it was against the 76ers. I don't remember the exact amount he finished with, but I know he was needed for that particular slate. He's not something I'm going to go crazy with, but I think my last run, I had just over 20% of SAR. So I was slightly overweight to the field on him, which is, that's a side that I'm good with being on for today. Let's see what else we have from Discord. We've got Stoke saying, why no Wemby? No, at the top of the show, I said that I like Wemby as a contrarian option. I mentioned that at the top. He's not like a core play for today or anything just because of how expensive he is. But yeah, I think he's a very serviceable contrarian option. Bees in Yo Ass wants to know Trey Johnson or Bub Carrington. Just 1v1, I prefer Bub Carrington tonight.
I've got Trey Johnson at 20.5, Carrington at 20.9. I'd probably take a little bit less ownership on Trey Johnson at this point, but they're very similar plays.
All right. The next question that we have here, it is from Win. It is a 2v2, Minot and Ware, or Dern and Whitmore. That is Minot and Ware for me. Honestly,
yeah, Minot and Ware. Whitmore just doesn't have a projection on him, really.
Both options are kind of shitty, but I'll go Minot and Ware. The Nature Boy, thoughts on Knuppel, getting a lot of him? I mean, it just makes sense. The Hornets are so shorthanded that he just kind of, it's like, where are the shot attempts going to go? Just by default, he's kind of a guy who also, he's had a good start to his rookie season. But yeah, it makes sense that he shows up in lineups when there's no LaMelo Ball or Colin Sexton. I'm currently updating my lineups here, doing one final Sims run Spags. But yeah, I do know that on my last run, I had a decent chunk of Knuppel. Where are you on with him?
I am actually just with the field getting 35% there. The ownership might have moved a little bit, but was at least in line with the previous ownership. He rebounds a little bit more because of LaMelo not being in. He can shoot, even though, he's not getting up a ton of threes right now. A 7.6 a game, actually, that's more than I thought. And if he runs hot on that, he's going to kill. But I do think in this kind of vacated Charlotte lineup, he's going to do a lot more than he would if you had Brandon Miller, LaMelo, Sexton healthy, because Knuppel is just, he can fall ass backwards on the rebounds, and he has so far this year.
One final reminder to you guys to like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Josh and I will be over on Playback in a couple of minutes. And if you want even more free content from us, go check out Tails. Either download the Tails app or just head on over to tails.bet and type that into your search bar. And if you're there and you're really enjoying the experience, because we've got free DFS content there, we've got a bunch of free bets as well. Here's something you can do that would really benefit our content and help keep it free. Just give us a nice review. 5 stars, write a couple of nice sentences as a write-up about how much you've enjoyed your experience over on the Tails app. It's little things like that that we really do appreciate, and they go a much longer way than you guys realize. It costs $0. It costs like 2 minutes of your time, maybe 3 minutes if you're a slow typer. But go ahead and do that for us, and we really, really do appreciate that. A couple of last questions here, Spags, before we head into lock. Bando wants to know, last man in, he's got 6K left on DraftKings. So he's got 6K to play with. Who should he roster in his final spot?
6K left. Okay, I have to. People are asking for different sort mechanisms, and that's like the hardest part of this show, is having to sort all these different ways. Do you have anybody?
Yeah, I mean, the hardest ones for me are always when people are like, "Hey, I've got 3 spots left in my lineup, and I've got $14,800. Who are the 3 guys?" I mean, we had one of those before. It just always ends up being complex. And then somebody's like, "Oh, I meant to say FanDuel, and I put it in DraftKings." Those ones always get complicated. For this though, 6K, that would be Knuppel for me. If you already have him in your lineup,
Stewart.
Then Claxton.
Yeah. Khalil Ware also close enough too if you weren't in a lineup. But the best guys under 6K for me would be Knuppel. I'm with you on that. He'd be my favorite. And Stewart, Isaiah Stewart, Khalil Ware. I think those guys jump out the most. Claxton, yeah, I agree, not bad.
Shout out to Christopher Key Cash, who gifted out a handful of YouTube memberships. Thank you very much for supporting the show. It is very much appreciated. So, Chris, handing those out like candy right before we get to lock here. Spags, any final thoughts for the people before Josh and I head on over to Playback? I'm about to grab that Playback link so I could post it in the YouTube chat for everybody.
Yeah, I think just really watching out for Charlotte seems to be the main thing for me. I have a lot of Trey Mann right now, a lot of KJ Simpson. If one of them doesn't start, I'm going to be swapping around and trying to downgrade accordingly. But, like I think for Simpson, he can come off the bench and that's fine. But I like the slate. I think I have decently spread around ownership. I feel good about things. I also think this time of year, you're going to start to see the smaller sample size of this year hopefully come a little more in play. And for guys like Giddey, guys like Sarr, I'm hoping they live up to how they have played so far this year.
All right, guys, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And in the YouTube chat, you'll see I just dropped a link there to Playback. It's also pretty easy to find. It's just playback.tv/Stokastic. So if you ever don't have the link handy, just playback.tv/Stokastic. Click on that link or type that in your search bar to join Josh and I over on Playback. See you guys over there in a second.